in 1949, Popular Mechanics published this article on ENIAC, and in the body of the article, it makes the claim that in the future, computers may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. And if you look at the way current approaches are to fault-tolerant quantum computing, many of those approaches really explode the number of qubits that are necessary. You encode one qubit into 100 qubits, one logical qubit into 100 physical qubits or 1,000 physical qubits. You do enormous amounts of magic state distillation, for example, which may require vast numbers of ancilla qubits. Is there a prospect that in the future quantum computers may weigh no more than 1.5 tons? Is there a way of getting away from these very large multiplicative overheads and getting to something more efficient? What are the prospects in that direction?
Well, first of all, when we do build the first fault-tolerant quantum computer that can run useful applications, it's probably going to be a big mother. It's going to be a big, complicated device like what you were describing and weigh a lot more than 1.5 tons. I think the most important step along the road of making it a much more compact device is not more clever error correction algorithms. It's much better hardware. I guess I keep saying that. And maybe that will come from incorporating insights from quantum error correction into the design and building of hardware. But I mean, I assume in the long run, that's where quantum computing will go. I can't believe that 100 years from now, people will be trying to squeeze as much juice as they can out of an error rate of 10 to the minus 3. I imagine they'll have much, much better gates than we currently foresee some way or another, but I don't really know how they're going to do it.
Is our future the steampunk, where we have steam engines powering all of our computation, these giant dilution refrigerators the size of small football fields, right? Or is it like our today's computer, right, which are nuts, right, in terms of the performance, and require significant changes in our hardware, right? I think the fascinating thing is that error correction points out that it's possible to build these robust quantum computers, right? And I still believe strongly that finding the right substrate and doing that could lead to, will lead to a future of reasonable sized quantum computers, right? Now, is that 50 years or 100 or 1,000? I don't know. But I also, it's just amazing that nature even allows us to do this, right? It was an amazing discovery after Shor's algorithm that we can encode information to protect it. We should, and if we can find a way to do that without having to do this all the crazy software that I have to write to program the damn thing, I'll be super happy to not have to write the error correcting software.
To be fair, the competitor of the quantum computer is, the most powerful supercomputers that we have today, which are digital and classical, and they're big mothers too. I mean,
that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, when you think about it, actually, the current experiments are small compared to Summit, which is one of the largest supercomputers, right? So we do set ourselves up. We sort of set ourselves up for tall tasks, right? Like competing against the supercomputer with a physics experiment on 50 or 100 qubits, right? Like it's kind of crazy. It's in some sense maybe a David and Goliath story, right? Which is, part of the excitement of the field.
But I guess, once we can build what Joe is envisioning, like a desktop size quantum computer, then it'll be irresistible to put a huge number of them together and, in a area.
I wasn't so much suggesting that as wondering whether we might transition to a period where instead of doing one qubit to many physical qubits, we might be doing few qubits to many, so that the overhead starts to not look multiplicative anymore, for example. As you enter a regime with lower physical error rates, for example. I wasn't necessarily suggesting, quantum iPhones. Although that would be cool if Dave, if you guys can build that. It's definitely worth $1,000 to me.
Well, I mean, there is some theory backing up the vision, but it's going to require much better error rates, and also probably the type of non-locality Dave referred to earlier to realize these more powerful coding schemes. It seems like being restricted to geometric locality in 3 dimensions will be a limitation.
Okay, so let me be respectful of your time, and thank you both very, very much for joining us. Do either of you have any last words for the episode?
Last words. Well,
Well,
we don't want to. Nobody
qualified
wants to go.
that.
Nobody wants to go first on the last words thing, because then your words aren't last. But I'll go first in the last words. I mean, to me, I do believe we're at an extremely exciting time for error correction, but it's still a long push to getting even the basic building blocks working. So we should be realistic about the timelines we're seeing for fault tolerance, right? But on the other hand, this also means, I mean, I think that like reading the archive now for error correction is again exciting. There are people thinking crazy thoughts now every day in academia and in industry. And so I think we are entering another one of these heydays of like real interesting progress in the field. And it was thanks to people like John who kept a lot of the lights on while the hardware was catching up that this exists. So it's been fun to talk to everyone about this.
I think quantum error correction is one of the great insights in the history of physics, actually. And of course, I never expected when I began my career as a theoretical physicist to ever do anything that would be of interest to technologists. So that seems like kind of a miracle that happened. But as a physicist, I also find exciting not just how we're going to use quantum error correction to make quantum computers work, but that it gives us new ways of thinking about deep problems in physics, understanding nature. Does nature make use of error correction in surprising ways? We think that's probably the case in trying to understand how gravitation works at a quantum level. Error correction ideas seem to enter very naturally. So I think an idea this good as quantum error correction is probably going to yield many surprises down the road. But my last word is that this was really fun. So thanks for the opportunity to join this conversation.